The more you want an outcome, the less likely it is to happen. I apologize, first of all, by the noise if there's some construction around, but we can all think of situations, whether that was in competition or in business or in career. But I think none is more relevant than when you're younger and you're after a girl and you really want to have a relationship with her or whatever it may be, to the point that you cannot take it out of your mind and you're always thinking about it, you get nervous about it, and it's just always there. And what we notice here is that the more this is prevalent in your mind, the more you start to think about how you're going to talk, how you're going to do things, how planning in advance situations to perhaps all of this. And the more one does so, very, very, very rarely, when you've wanted that like that, does it go as you want. Almost never it does. And the reason for this, I think, can be we can compare here to if I have, let's say, a gap, or not a gap, if I draw like these two lines on the floor and I tell you, walk 100 meters in between these lines. Most people would have no problem with that. It would be as natural or as easy as, I don't know, getting dressed in the morning or brushing your teeth. And I think it was Kanye West that said this example, but if I take the same space and around it, or I put this like 2,000 meters up in the air, and there's no floor around the lines, and if you fall, you die, you're not going to be able to. And most people, your knees are going to get weak. And if you were to walk it, you'd probably somehow find a way to stumble and fall. And why is that? Why is it that in one you can do it so easily and in the other you can't? And I know it's a very exaggerated scenario here, but it is because of the fear of the consequences for not being able to go through with it. Because the more afraid we are that something is going to go against what we want, in this case, death, but if it's getting the girl or the business or whatever, fundamentally, really wanting something means really not wanting things to go wrong. And you can't even think about, oh my God, if it doesn't work, I don't even want to think about it. I'll be heartbroken. And because we're so afraid, it feels like we cannot afford to fail. And that very natural leads us to thinking that we can hide in thought, and that, or in other words, that we can, by thinking about it and by planning and by doing all of this, that we can make it less likely that we'll fail. The problem is that when we're so busy with this type of thinking and planning and kind of trying to force things to go the way we want to, very really microscopical way in our actions, all of it, we make sure that we cannot see the opportunities presented to us. And we make sure that we cannot go with the flow of things to find the correct things to do and saying whatever that are presented to us in that moment. And we become so stiff and so unable to see that we make sure that we fail. And a lot of times you'll see that in situations when you really didn't care, or you're just more free of outcome and just doing things, just flowing, things go much better. And if you were to have the outcome that happened beforehand, you would not have acted in that way. Or if you wanted that outcome before you started acting. And it is so funny because obviously this example, I think it's the most obvious we can all relate to, but it happens in everything, in competition, in business, in your career, in anything. Even for something like public speaking, where most people, if it's normally talking with your friends, do you struggle in talking and being funny when you have to be funny and just, interact? No. But if I put you on a stage and I tell you now go talk, well, that's a bit harder. And now you freeze and now you're thinking, what am I going to say? What am I not going to say? And it's the same thing here. And I think, again, that we really do a disservice to ourselves. Well, perhaps by just wanting things so much, but by, in a lot of ways, trying to put our will so much into things. And that we think that by thinking and by planning, we can see it all and see the whole path, and that we can just walk it. But we can't, because things always fall outside of the plan. Things never go as expected, never go as we want, nor should they. It's why would you deprive yourself and me and anyone of the rewards that are presented to us, the situations that are presented to us, the flow of life, and whatever situation you find yourself in? Why would we deprive ourselves from it? Why would we remove the perhaps what I would call here one of the best things about life is that to react to what was presented to us. And this is not to say that one shouldn't have a plan and that one shouldn't think and use our intelligent thought to plan ahead, and of course not. But within those plans, we must allow freedom for better things that we can conceive to happen, because they will happen. But we have to be free enough. It's like when you're playing a sport. Let's say now as the NBA finals are happening, the conference finals now, and then will be the finals. If a player was to try to imagine the whole game ahead of the game and be like, then we do this play, and then they do this, and then we do that, you just overwhelm yourself. And then when a better situation would be presented to you to shoot the tree or to drive or whatever, you wouldn't take it because it's going against the plan. But what is the plan if not a way to try to get the best outcome? Now, what I'm saying here is that if you go detailed enough, you do yourself a disservice, because again, we cannot calculate every variable, understand everything that will happen in the future. We can barely understand what happened already, much less what will happen, to try to predict what will happen. So I think really we do a disservice to ourselves, not only with how we experience life and situations, but also the outcomes we receive by trying to control them all in a very controlling way. If we plan and do these things, but then allow the freedom for things to develop and to happen and for the best case scenario to happen and be presented to us, we have to let go.